The topic in Chapter 14 is coercion, and this is something we've already seen in the past, and what we've seen is something known as automatic coercion. In this particular case, we're going to actually be able to take coercion of an object from one data type to another data type in our control, and here are some examples of how that is done. When you create an object, it'll start out in a prescribed mode, and that mode might be integer, complex, numeric, character, etc. There are two functions that are very important when it comes to coercion, and the first is, and the second is as. Is will actually ask the question, is a object of a particular data type. The as function will force coercion to a particular data type. And I'll do examples of these as we go. So the first question I'm going to ask is an is question. And I'm going to ask, is the number 5 numeric? And it will return true. So again, this is asking the question, is 5 numeric? Here's a trick question. Is 5 an integer? Now you might think the answer is true, but it's going to come back with a false. The way you would get that to be an integer is you would put that capital L out there. So you remember there are the data types numeric, which can take on an integer value or a floating point. If you want to force it to be stored internally as an integer, you would use the capital L, and this will come back as a true. Here's another question. Is 5 a character string? And the answer is false. But what if we say we want 5 to be a character string? In that case, you would use the as function. Now, how is it going to convert a 5 to a character string? What it's going to do is it's going to put quotes on either side of it, and now that's the string 5 rather than the numeric value 5. And you can see this goes on and on. You can ask the question, is complex something like 3 plus 8i? And the answer to that is true. That is a complex number. Here's one that you haven't seen before. It's the word atomic. Let me put in a vector here, maybe the vector 4 through 9. The term atomic is used in R to signify a data structure whose elements all have the same type. Now, if you look at that vector 4 through 9, you've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Those are all numeric vectors. So when you ask the question, is that atomic? The answer would be yes. Every single one of those are of the same type. So when you hit the return key, you will see that comes back as true. Another thing you might do is set x, for example, to a 5-element vector of logicals. Notice that shows up here in the upper right. We have a vector. The elements of the vector are logicals, and it has a single subscript that goes from 1 to 5. Let's take a look at x, and here it is. We could ask the question, are the elements of x logical? And the answer is yes, the elements of x are indeed logical. We could then say, I want to do force coercion. I want them to be as numerical, x. And in this case, what it's going to do is it's got to turn a true or a false into a numerical value. Well, the decision that R makes is, if it is a false, it will return a 0. If it is a true, it will return a 1. So in this particular case, I spelled numerical wrong. Oh, it's not numerical, it is numeric. And there we go. Those 5 falses all changed to zeros. So that's another case of using forced coercion. So the key functions that have been brought up in this chapter are the is, which asks for the data type, whether or not a particular object has a data type of interest, and the other is as, which rather than using automatic coercion, does forced coercion.